UED, dear Commander, dear Commander, dear Commander,
I preamble, Swaziland is in a political, constitutional and economic crisis. The blame is put squarely on the King Mswati III, the monarchy institution that he represents, and the undemocratic Dinkundla system. 1973 constitutional coup by King Sobhuza II. The genesis of the problems can be traced back to that fateful day of 12 April 1973, where the then King Mswati's stepfather, who is King Sobhuza II,
But a stepfather.
unilaterally and unconstitutionally repealed the 1968 Independence Constitution. He successfully staged an unconstitutional coup. The result of that was the following. He took control of the army, police, correctional services, forces. He stationed them in strategic points. He dissolved a democratically elected parliament. He banned political parties. He banned any form of public meetings, including sports meetings. He introduced a state of emergency that put in place detention without trial. He took control of the lives of all Swazi citizens. From that fateful day of 12 April 1973 up to this day, 16 November 2022, some 49 years later, the Swazi people have been peacefully calling for freedom from the Swazi royal family. This call was in vain. In the almost 50 years, more Swazis have been tortured and jailed, evicted from their ancestral lands, their businesses forcefully taken by the royal family, school children and university students expelled from the institution of learning, many forced to exile in SA, the continent, and overseas. Life under the royal family has deteriorated. High unemployment as jobs are reserved for the members of the royal family. Slave salaries for workers. Collapsed healthcare system. Government doctors primarily issue prescriptions for poor patients to go get medication in private pharmacies. High mortality rate and reduced lifespan. Collapsed education system. No more scholarships for the majority of the deserving students. Collapsed roads and other infrastructure. No civil liberties and rights for the people. The royal family life of opulence. Whilst our people go to bed on empty stomachs, the royal family lives an excessively luxurious life. The king has built palaces for each of the 15 wives. Each of them have royal guards, escorts, and children, and have monthly stipends worth millions of emalangen, of which 1 lilangen is equivalent to 1 rand. Private jets, a fleet of expensive cars, healthcare facilities in private SA and overseas hospitals, education of the royal children in very expensive local, SA and overseas schools, the grabbing of farmlands, mines, businesses in the sugar industry, petroleum, banking, property, retail and logistics for the royal family. The June 2021 massacre. The king unleashed his armed forces against the unarmed citizens for merely demanding democratic reforms. In the aftermath of the June massacre, more than 100 unarmed Swazis, mostly young men and women, were killed in cold blood. more than 700 were arrested. 2 members of parliament were arrested who are still in jail up to today, more than a year later. 1 member of parliament was forced into exile. Many Swazis were forced into exile. More than 100 were seriously maimed and lost their limbs. Some are having bullets stuck in their bodies, even today. The international community, when the abuse and suppression of the Swazi citizens' human rights by the royal family, the international community has either decided to actively support the royal family, look the other way, or get in bed with the royal family in looting the resources of the country. The following bodies have betrayed the oppressed people of Swaziland. These are SADC, African Union, the Commonwealth, and the European Union. We, the people of Swaziland, are aware that we are on our own. Hence, we are forced to fight for our freedom. We are, however, indebted to these organizations. We are greatly indebted to our international allies, like COSATU, affiliates, in particular NEHAU, Pop Crew, and others, the South African Communist Party, the ANC, the South African Federation of Trade Unions, SAFTU, and its affiliates, the Economic Freedom Fighters, EFF, and some church leaders. Our people's demands. The cessation of hostilities, removal of armed forces from the communities, towns, villages, and streets of Swaziland. King Mswati III, Deputy Prime Minister Themba Masuku, and heads of armed forces, the army, the police, correctional services, to be brought to justice in the International Criminal Court to face crimes against humanity. The people of Swaziland have reported a case to the ICC. The unconditional release of 2 members of parliament, Bakete Mabuza and Tandendu, and all political detainees or prisoners. The unconditional return of all political exiles, the unbanning of all political organizations, just and equitable compensation or repatriations to all those affected by the royal family brutality over the years. These include those who were injured before, during, and after the June 2021 uprisings. Those arbitrarily evicted and from their homes, bulldozed by the royal family, and require compensation. Genuine and internationally supervised, all-inclusive national political dialogue. All sectors of the Swazi population must freely participate in such a political dialogue. The dialogue shall also include currently proscribed political and underground formations. This dialogue should never be held in an undemocratic royal kettle trough. This dialogue will help usher a new democratic constitution that will help our people determine their future state as a free people. Amandla.
Awethu.